But first, do you agree with that? I mean, you're the leader of the institution, there's faculty members on your staff.
Why won't he answer the question?
Representative Waltz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to address this narrative that we consistently hear from political appointees in the Pentagon, from our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, that Republicans are blowing these issues out of proportion, that we're exaggerating, and I cannot state strongly enough. If we did not have cadets, military members, their families bringing these issues to us on a consistent basis, we wouldn't be addressing them here. I have an entire binder of issues, some of them from, one of them from a conservative Muslim family, another of them from a conservative Jewish family. And the question I would ask the other side of the aisle, the ranking member, and you all is, why weren't they comfortable in an inclusive environment going through their chain of command? And that's something that I think I encourage you to deeply, deeply think about it. But in that vein.
So this is going to be an interesting topic. I would say this, man, because he's talking about how they're receiving complaints from a Muslim conservative family, and he's asking why they weren't comfortable in an inclusive environment. From what I personally know about these type of programs and stuff, I'm just going to say this. When you go out your way to make an environment inclusive in terms of diversity or things on that sort, it can actually have a negative effect. Because instead of making it super inclusive, you can be building tension and hostility within the group. What do I mean by this? When you go out your way to have a super diverse program or, event, rather than people getting along in those type of events or saying, you know what, whatever the crowd is diverse, people are going to have like inherent biases because they're going to look at, for example, a conservative Muslim family and say, wow, you don't deserve to be here, or wow, why are you here? All I'm saying is that's what these type of programs can do. When you go out your way to have diversity, I guess equity and inclusion, whatever the crap, it can have negative results because rather than just being diverse, it can just build so much tension within the group that it can't be overcome.
General Clark, an Air Force Academy professor, wrote a Washington Post op-ed that she proudly teaches critical race theory at the Air Force Academy.
Oh,
I want to read to you some quotes from the leading proponents of this ideology, because I don't think Americans know truly how divisive and destructive this ideology.
That's what I just said. It's divisive. Like, I'm not gonna go too far into say it's destructive because I don't know if it's like super destructive. But like I said, just using critical thinking is extremely divisive because I know how humans think. It's just like I would think that would just be a normal, like, of course it'd be divisive. If you're forcing, imagine this, and I'm gonna unpause it real quick. Imagine this, you playing outside and then let's say your parents, they make you play with your little sibling or something. It's literally like that. you of course you love your family, you love them to death, but you're like, sometimes it's like, oh my God, that's what it's like.
Is one of them we have here. A positive white identity is an impossible goal.
What?
White identity is inherently, because of the skin color apparently, is inherently racist. White people do not exist outside the system of white supremacy. This isn't 100, 200 years ago. This is today. This does not mean that we should stop identifying as white and start claiming to be some other type of race. To do so is to deny the reality of racism in the here and now. This isn't a way of thinking or a history class. This is present-day indoctrination. And this denial of that would be colorblind racism. So rather, this author strives to be less white and therefore less racially oppressive because of his privilege.
What?
That's from the author of White Fragility. General Clark, do you agree with that statement?
Sir, what I will tell you is you mentioned our instructor who talked about teaching.
It's currently still teaching at the Air Force Academy,
absolutely,
correct?
Yes, sir. Who talked about teaching about critical race.
Do you agree with that statement? I only have 2 minutes left for the American people to ask you these questions.
Well, sir, I'd like to talk about your question about critical race theory and the instructor, if that's okay first.
Very quickly, please. But first, do you agree with that? I mean, you're the leader of the institution. There's faculty members on your staff.
Why won't he answer the question, bro? Oh my God. Gosh, I don't want to say God's name in vain. Oh my gosh, goodness, bro. He asked him, "Do you agree with the statement from one of his, I guess, subordinates or insubordinates? I don't know the correct word. I'm not a dictionary." But he asked, like, "Do you agree with it?" He's like, "Well, bro, yes or no?" It is crazy because it's kind of scary that he won't answer this question. It's scary that he won't answer this question. Me personally, I didn't even know this stuff was like happening in day-to-day life. I thought it was like, cause I be on TikTok a lot. I'm young. I don't really be watching these press conferences and stuff like this. Y'all would know way more about it than me. So I'll be on TikTok and I hear people complain about stuff like this. I'm like, you're over-exaggerating. There's no way it's this bad. But when I watch videos like this, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that he just refusing to answer. He's literally not going to answer the question.
Do you agree with that type of sentiment?
Sir, that's not what she was espousing. She was not
White
indoctrinating.
Fragility is a leading book in the critical race theory mantra of books and thinking.
Yes,
It's
sir.
very
She was
representative.
encouraging the discourse on the topic, the civil discourse, so that our cadets could
Would
understand
you encourage
how
someone who
to
says they're
think.
teaching white supremacy to have that discourse?
Sir, we encourage all civil discourse
I
so
think
that
it
our
should be
cadets can
limited
learn
in-
how to think.
Right, at a Cal Berkeley, fine, but in an institution that's teaching our leaders to defend future military members, to die for civilian institutions that are being described as inherently racist and a class of people because of their skin color, that's offensive. That runs against your priorities.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We're teaching critical thinkers, though, and we want
That's
our
offensive
cadets.
thinking.
We
That's
want our
racist.
cadets.
No, respectfully, that's racist thinking, but just
I'm not.
so that we're clear, this was a speaker that was at the Air Force Academy.
Here's my thoughts on this. I'm all for free speech. All for free speech. I believe people should be able to say whatever they want, whenever they want. However, and this might catch y'all a little off guard, when it comes to being at a job or being in school, I am not for 100% free speech. I'm not. And you're probably like, what do you mean? Because, for example, when you're in school, your job as an instructor is to prepare your students for the real world. That's how I see schools. You're supposed to prepare them for future vocations. And honestly, as an instructor, you don't have the power to prepare everyone for exactly what they want to do. So your main thing should be to prepare them for how to think and how to move in society. And in society, whether you like it or not, you cannot say whatever you want with getting 100% away with it. And you know this to be true. I know it to be true. Of course, you have free speech. You're entitled to say whatever you want. But there are consequences if you want a vocation or you want something out of life. You can't say 100% whatever you want. So when it comes to these type of conversations you're having with students saying, I guess, white fertility is bad or a race of people are inherently bad, is wrong. And of course, the person can argue that, yeah, you're preparing them to think on them by themselves. However, if you have young students in the class, some of these students are Caucasian, some are white, and some are black. But what does this do? It's teaching them subconsciously that their race is bad. These young white people are thinking that, wow, their race is bad. They don't know. And the young black people are thinking like, wow, your race is bad. That's the problem. And that's going to cause way more harm than it is good. And I understand free speech, but honestly, I couldn't care. It's a school. You're supposed to prepare them for the real world and look after your students. And when you teach something like this, it's hard for me to believe that you have their best interest at heart.
National Character and Leadership Ceremony, Dr. Eddie Glaude, that spoke to current day cadets, every reckoning in the United States has carried with it betrayal. At every moment in which a new America is on the verge of being reborn, the umbilical cord of white supremacy has been wrapped around the baby's neck, choking the life out of it.
What?
This was at a conference.
What? And then this is so weird to me. Like this whole movement that people don't like America. I don't understand it. Because, okay, here's my thing. If you don't like America, like if you deep down do not like the United States of America, I think you don't like the world. And you're like, what do you mean by that? Because if you think about it, America is literally, I think it's the best country on earth, but it's at least top 3 best country on earth, specifically for African Americans. And you're probably not African American. If you are, then you probably agree with me. Like, so when somebody is teaching doctrine that denounces the United States, it says things like this, especially at a government institution, I'm a little confused. Cause I'm like, what other country are you comparing the United States to for you to say something like this and be like, wow, that place is better? I don't get it.
Just last year, I think, again, this type of rhetoric, because we hear this from the other side as well. Of course we want to teach history. Of course we want equal opportunity for every American. This is divisive. This isn't what unifies us. So I just have one more question, and I'll throw it over to you, Admiral Buck. Do you have any empirical evidence? Do you have any data, for example, that shows that a submarine crew is more combat ready or effective because of the diversity mix, because of the different mix of, say, skin color? Mr. Chairman? No, I absolutely agree, but we don't see in many box checking, we're not looking for religious diversity or other types of diversity, or frankly, my wife who looks white, but she's 100% Arab. She doesn't have a box to check, but I would like to reclaim my time a few seconds just to ask the question, Mr. Chairman, for the interruption.
We'll try to do another round of questions.
And they didn't even, and this is what really pisses me off. They're not going to answer that question. So that's what really upsets me. It doesn't really help. It doesn't help the students, for one. It doesn't help the institutions, for one. So it's just a whole rack of virtual signaling. It's a whole lot of cognitive dissonance. It's a whole lot of lies that you're telling yourself. And it's not really helping anyone. So I'm like, what is the point? What is the point of doing this? And it's hard for me because I'm the type of person that's like, okay, maybe they have good intentions behind it. That's what I would think. That's what I would hope. But when I watch stuff like this, it's hard for me to really say they have good intentions because he asked the question, nobody's going to answer it. The video's over now. Nobody's even going to answer it. They're like, oh, you're out of time. Answer the question. Like, I want to know. Like, I'm about to enter this world for real. So, like, what is the point of it? And it just divides and divides and divides. So, yeah, if you have any suggestions for me or comments about this, comment down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you.